Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to TRS Live Podcast. Boy, it's been a minute.
Good morning.
There's Justin Munt right there. We're running a little short crew today.
Putting out some fires. Yeah, we got some, I don't know. It is what it is.
Oh, I just meant our height. You and I are both kind of short.
Oh. Good joke. Yeah.
Android is here today as well. Android, say good morning.
Good morning.
So, Justin, we haven't done this now in 2 weeks. Oh, look at this guy. Are we talking bass fishing today?
We're not talking, well, I mean, actually, there's a lot of similarities in pan fishing to bass fishing.
Oh, so our topic today is pan fishing.
It's spring panfish or all panfish, tips, tricks, techniques.
So, are we dropping some panty knowledge?
I'll leave that for you.
Okay. Good morning, Die Hard Angling on Facebook. What's going on today, my friend? So I am excited for this topic because I really enjoy catching crappies and bluegills. I don't target perch enough. I think that's a little different than some of the stuff that maybe we're going to cover.
Yeah, we'll dabble on the perch a little bit.
But are we in pre-spawn for a lot of panfish right now?
Yeah, I think, well, we're post on the perch. Perch
Yep.
are first. They're kind of like the walleyes. They're early season, low water temp spawning fish. And then crappie follows, and then bluegills follow that.
Okay.
So bluegill and the bass, they live in a lot of the same areas. They spawn at the same time. It's dangerous for the bluegill, unfortunately, but that's why baits that look like bluegills catch bass.
So do you think we're more on the tail end right now of the crappie spawn, or are we just? I haven't been out yet to see them. Normally, I've been out once or twice. I haven't been out to take advantage of it yet. A lot of inland lakes.
So again, that spawn, just like any other spawn, it'll vary. Bodies of water, systems, shallow systems, deep systems, clear water lakes, cool, warm up slower. So you're probably just getting your crappie spawn on some of your crystal clear lakes, whereas your shallow, tannic or stained waters are probably about done on the crappie side, and the bluegills are probably moving in.
They're getting ready to move out.
Yep.
I wonder, Die Hard England has been doing a lot of walleye fishing. I wonder if he can drop some hints on, because he's a full-time guide, on what he's seen as far as the panfish spawn out there. So we have an array of tackle that the Real Shot carries and sells.
Yep.
A lot of these products are available in-store and online, correct?
Correct. Yep. Everything here today should be available online as in store. So check it out. We do have a pretty big panfish selection. It's not big enough. It's a category we want to grow.
But think about where it was to where it is now.
Yeah, I think just as a whole, I don't think a lot of people realize how many panfish. I mean, I think if you look at the studies of like how many participants per species, I think panfish is actually number one by a long shot.
Well, the nice thing about pan fishing is it's favorable for those shoreline anglers, which a lot of us are.
Yep.
You can go out from shore and have some phenomenal pan fishing and catch it. And it's the other thing is just catch and eat, right?
Yep.
You're going out there, do some of these panfish justice, some of those bigger trophy-sized panfish, try to let them go. Eat those mid-sized fish, but this is one where you're going to definitely want to catch and cook type stuff.
How does
there's
catch
a whole
big
ton of
panfish?
Controversy over panfish populations. In the last couple of years, you've seen, regulation changes from 25 to 10 or 5 bluegills or 5 of one species to make your 15.
Yep.
So they're trying to keep populations from getting over harvested, bodies of water from getting stunted, people only taking the big fish. It's like any species, like walleye, like muskie. You want to harvest the smaller.
Yeah, right.
I did it. No, you just like this. The mid-sized fish, not the biggest fish of the population, are generally better table fare anyway.
Yeah.
But so that's something on the conservation side that I think people are starting to make changes.
I agree. There's a lot of people that are. I think there's a lot of people too that are targeting the trophies, for the pictures and the CPR aspect of it. And that's kind of what Andy just asked me is like other fish, other game fish, you can try to target bigger of the sizes, right? Like walleyes,
sure.
You can key in on those 25 inchers, right?
Yep.
Certain tactics. Bass the same, muskies the same. How do you target those bigger caliber panfish?
It's really just probably similar to targeting the larger game fish species. I mean, you're going to find areas that are going to hold bigger panfish. You're going to find areas that it's against a prime structure, prime areas, like a lot of lakes out by you, right? Cribs, right? You're going to find a lot of your smaller panfish probably in your shallow weed lines, some of that stuff, and your cribs maybe are where you're holding your big. It's it's the best housing in the lake, so that's kind of how they're gonna. And also they like some of the big fish, especially crappies, will suspend over base in midsummer just like they do in the winter.
Really?
So if you look at where you ice fish in the winter, and think about that like it's spring and summer, you have a lot of the same transition. Spring shallow, right? As the water warms up, oxygen starts to deplete. It'll push fish into that basin area where there's cooler water, and access to food. So
and just like obviously, just like ice fishing in this aspect too, it's use your electronics. I mean, the live imaging is helping you identify those larger schools of fish, and then you can also sometimes tell the larger fish in those schools. But then it's, I know a lot of guys use, side imaging to locate beds as well.
Oh yeah, that's a big thing. The bluegill beds, crappie beds, largemouth beds, they're all going to be, a lot of them are going to be in the same area.
Mm-hmm.
So that's why today we were going to just kind of discuss like the spring panfish. It's the easiest time of year to target fish because they're spawning.
Correct.
That's a whole nother
it's
topic in debate.
It is a hot button, right? That spawn bite, that taking advantage of the fish when they're trying to repopulate. Is it fair? Is it not? That's not what we're here to cover.
The smallmouth and largemouth guys always get it the hardest. They're always, hey, you guys are targeting your bass on beds. Well, if you look at everything we've fished to date, this, every spring, like we're beating up the walleyes on the spawn, up and down, right? Hammering on them. Same thing, early season muskie, although the DNR does a pretty good job of timing that out. So that's mostly post spawn on that species. But yeah, crappies spawn, bluegills spawn, white bass spawn.
Yeah.
So to pick just on the bass guys, while every other fishery or fisherman target species are generally the best is related around that spawning time. So
and it's just the same. We don't want to dwell on this topic for too long, but a bluegill or a nice crappie, like a 10-inch bluegill. That fish doesn't get that big in 2 years.
No.
That fish has to survive a lot. First of all, being prey for all those other species we're talking about. But then, the harvest rate of that fish, once it hits that 8 to 9 inch range and somebody catches it, it's probably going to see a fry pan. You think about like a spring turkey, like the male spring turkey mortality rate is like 85 to 90%.
Yeah.
Think about that. I may live this year. I may not live this year.
Right. Yeah, I know. I don't even know. You probably know what the average age of a turkey is. What?
I would say
3, 2,
yeah, 2 for sure
on a tom or a male.
Say, yeah. I think majority of hunters try to pass up the jakes, but I mean, we also talk about that's your better eating bird. So
well, yeah, we could talk about that too. But
I'm not afraid to shoot a fawn either. I'll say it right here live on TRS Live.
Do the spots taste good, man?
They do. So let's get into some of this now. Andy did ask, what is a crib? So a crib is any kind of man-made structure in some of these lakes, right? Some guys use Christmas trees. Some will build them out of wood. There's a lot of companies now that are pushing like recycled material.
Yep.
It's just a man-made structure that holds fish. So in a lot of lakes, especially out by me, we don't have, I live near a lot of inland lakes. We don't have a lot of natural structure, but by saying that, like a lot of down trees. Now the DNR and some of the lakes I fish have done a nice job going down and dropping trees and putting trees on shorelines. But they, a lot of people will go right off of their dock because they enjoy fishing off their dock, and they will build a man-made structure. Now, are those legal? Like, I don't know if that's an illegal thing. Is it up to the lake associations?
Yeah, I don't know the legal spiegel on putting, artificial structure type stuff in the water, but a lot of it's necessary in lakes around your area. A lot of the lakes, they get built up with homes, and everybody wants a nice shoreline, and they want no weeds so their kids can swim or it doesn't get in their engine. Well, the entire shoreline of the whole lake is all you're removing all the structure.
Yep.
You know, the down trees are natural; those are getting removed. So if you don't add that artificial protection, so these fish have a place to hide from predatory fish, you know, you're gonna have a dip in your population, real quick. So,
yep. Or a lot of it too, like you were saying, that stunted stuff. So. Where do you want to start today? So we have rods, we have artificial baits, we have bobbers, and all this kind of good stuff. Again, a lot like all the other species, I personally like to target panfish with artificials. Yep. I think it's just a lot faster. It's a lot cleaner. You don't get as many gut hook fish. Not to say that's always the case, but it's a lot more fun, and it keeps you fishing a lot faster. So I think that's kind of why you have the artificials in front of us.
Yeah, I went mostly artificial. I mean, your most basic bluegill setup is a small number 10 bait holder hook, a split shot, and a spring float. I mean, that's probably accounts for a huge number of what people like to fish with. It's simple and it's effective. And
it's affordable. And fishing is also affordable.
It's affordable. Yep. But bait fishing with worms is kind of messy. So like I prefer artificials. There are times when you do need live bait.
Yep.
I think perch are an example of not a picky, but live bait can make or break a day sometimes with the perch population. Crappies to me are the easiest ones to catch on artificials. I think they're more aggressive. They have kind of feed like a bass. They have a bigger mouth. They eat a lot of minnows. So you can get away with a little bigger, presentation for those.
Yep.
So yeah, we can just touch on. I brought a little bit of everything. I brought some line, some rod selections. Maybe we can just go over rods and line.
I think rods is one that we should probably hit on right away. Obviously, it's the staple of it. But for the longest time, I made mistakes. Like when I first really started getting into pan fishing, it was ultralight this, and you'd think of it like a short rod. I missed way too many fish because I had too light of a rod, too whippy of a rod, and too short of a rod. Once I upgraded to, I think my rod my absolute favorite right now is a 6-footer, and I think it might be a medium light or a light.
Yep.
That rod is the perfect length. I can do bobber fishing with it, and I can also just whip all these artificials as well. So I think rod length is one that people maybe don't pay enough attention to.
Well, and rod quality too. Like we're seeing a trend, just like every other, species that we target. If you're not, a pan fisherman running a float, then the higher grade of graphite is definitely beneficial. You're again trying to feel the strike. The fish is smaller, so the strikes are probably going to be less intense.
Yep.
So sensitivity or good graphite makes a huge difference. That's probably our 2 house favorites.
Okay, so what do I have here?
You got a St. Croix panfish rod is a 7-foot light action. And just like what you stated, I like a little bit more backbone throwing some of this bigger stuff. You get better control. I think you get better casting distance. You get better feel. It's not as noodly. So yeah, the Temple Fork, the TFO panfish rod.
So that's this one here. I'm going to set this St. Croix down for now. Okay, don't want to break it before anybody buys it. Okay, so this is the Temple Fork, Andrew. What is this, a 7-footer?
That's a 7-foot UL.
Yeah.
So again, every rod manufacturer's blank is a little bit different. So that 7-foot ultralight TFO feels a lot like the 7-foot St. Croix light action. To me, it's not a true ultralight. It's a little stiffer, which is kind of why I grabbed that one. I like it.
Yeah, I like the split grip. I like a longer butt end on my rods as well.
Yep.
Just tucks up closer to my my elbow area for better hook sets. Like I still tiptoe on panfish just like I tiptoe on everything else. Dude, hook sets are free.
It's fun.
I love jacking into them. And with like a crappie with that big, they got those big bones around their mouth.
Yep.
You gotta penetrate. And if you don't get it always up in the top portion of the lip, if you side hook them, you gotta drive that hook home. And having a good stout rod for that, a good backbone rod like you referenced, is really key.
Yeah, they're commonly known as the paper mouth too, but that's really on the sides. It's real soft, so you got to be careful when you're boat flipping them.
Yeah.
That's a thing,
dude. You have to net crappies sometimes. Like I've lost a lot of crappies boat side because you don't have a net,
and they're heavier than what you think. You know what I mean? You had some dandies last year, and you were basically bass fishing for them. And that's how I like to fish for. I like to target structure and flip like light jigs and plastics, just like your fishing really just like you're fishing bass, pitching docks, shooting docks. I don't know if you ever get on the YouTube and watch those guys shoot.
Dude.
That skill, I'm okay.
Have you tried it?
I've tried it.
So what you're trying to say is you take a rod. Now, are you fishing something this long for that?
I think yes. I think the guys are fishing 6 to 7 foot rods.
Yeah, and you bowl the rod.
Yep, you load it up.
And then you gotta be careful with your bait of choice.
Bail open.
Finger
pinching the line.
Yep, up here.
Yep, load that rod up. And then they'll point it and shoot. And just before that bait gets to the dock, they lift. So it's I'm not that good at it. Some of these guys are amazing. Like they can get a small jig 12, 15 feet under dock. And you look at like the southern reservoirs, some of those dock structures are huge. Like our average dock is what, 4 foot wide.
Yeah.
But some of these on these big reses are just giant platforms.
Yes.
Like they're massive. So
and
you can
hold
imagine
a lot of fish.
Oh my God. You can target panfish on docks all year long.
How do you? Most of the time, you're doing that with a jig and a plastic, right? A single hook. You're not doing that with a crankbait or a little Rapala.
Nope.
You just got to kind of cup it, right? Like.
Yep. You can either grab the hook or grab the head.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not that dangerous. You're dealing with the tiny hook. So
I know,
even if you throw it through your finger, you
don't want to ruin your day. Okay, so that's a TFO. Do we want to talk like a price range for some of these rods?
These two are right around that $100 mark.
Okay.
So they're up there in the price range and quality graphite on the panfish market. There are companies that make cheaper ones and more expensive ones, but this seems to be a pretty good for a serious pan fisherman. These are the house favorites. So
this really feels nice too. This is a St. Croix panfish. This is a 7 foot light power.
Yep, it's just a great rod.
Do you notice do guides really matter a whole lot for the panfish stuff? I'm talking more the insert. Is this aluminum or what is that?
Those
one?
Are all steel. Yeah, those are all
steel?
Stainless guides.
Yep. That's a nice rod too. Be careful because as well as they're sensitive, they are delicate at times.
Well, you'd be surprised. You just whip them stones.
Whip them. Okay, what do you have over here?
This is a new addition for us in our panfish line. This is the Daiwa Procyon. This comes in at 80. I also grabbed a 6.6 light here. And Ty, who was going to join me, who's also a big pan fisherman, he grabbed a little bit shorter rod. Some people like the shorties. And we sell a lot of these short panfish rods for the inland stream trout guys, too.
So this is a 2-piecer?
That is a 2-piecer,
okay.
Yep.
Okay. Which is nice, too, for those guys that are shoreline.
Yeah, and if you're an exclusive bobber fisherman, you can get away with any inexpensive rod. You could throw a bobber on a 7'6" heavy action spinning rod, right?
Yep.
It's not going to be any fun to fight the fish, but you're going to be able to throw a float. You're not as far as you'd be able to throw with, the proper setup. But bobber fishing basically eliminates the need for a sensitive rod.
Correct. You have the indicator.
Because they're your indicators, your float. So you're done.
So the two rods that we talked about here and then here, are these all, you could also fish these, a lot of bobber setups too, you're saying?
Yep. This you could buy, and I do, a 7 foot light, either the TFO or the Croy. Go straight fluoro most of the time or a nice supple mono.
Yep.
And then, clip your float on. If you want to just take your float off and pitch jigs, do it. It's just universal. So you can do it just about anything you can you want with these.
So these are new, the Daiwa Procyons. These are pretty nice,
These are really nice. I was impressed with this line. That's why we brought them in. There's, I think, 3 or 4 different actions, 6'6", 7 foot. This is a 5'6" UL.
So that could be trout and panfish then.
Trout and panfish.
Trout guys.
You see the inland trout guys, they lean on the shorter ones just because some of those guys that target rookies, they like that real tight, nasty stuff.
Yep.
This one has a really
real
quick tip. For those perch guys too who like to hang over the side of the boat on bago.
Dead sticking.
This rod is the rod you've been waiting for.
There he is. Very nice. Again, check a lot of this stuff out at The Real Shot, online as well at therealshot.com. Now, this is one that for the longest time when I was working the sales floor, we had a ton of requests for both of these type of rods here. Do you want to? Let's start with the cane. Is this like you consider that a cane?
Yeah, this is a fiberglass cane pole. It's sectional. It's telescopic. So where both of these rods come into play is guys are like in your Duncan.
Yep.
That's what I call it, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So you're just taking a 8, 10, or 12-foot rod, typically with the float, not necessary, but you're basically sitting it in pockets of whatever, weed pockets, lily pad pockets. You're just setting it your spot, you're dinking it here, you're dinking it here.
Yep.
No bite. The guys on the Wolf River really like them too, fishing all the trees and stuff.
Yes.
Because it's hard to cast in a lot of that real dense wood. So what you're doing is you're just basically setting a jig in the spot you want.
Yep.
And you're plucking them out.
Yeah, we have, this is just like the tip of the iceberg on we have do we still carry a lot of those rods that are in that 10, 12-foot range?
Oh, yeah.
Because this one's not quite that tall, right?
No, that's an 8-footer.
Oh.
That comes in 8, 10, and 12. That's a B&M. Just they target, that's panfish is their deal.
Nice. Now that one, this requires a reel.
Yep.
That is just your straight cane style where it's the line at the end and.
Yep. The Duncan is basically just tying a piece of fluoro or mono to the tip, 6 foot section, putting your plastic or your bobber or your worm, whatever you want on it, and you're just dipping it in the hole. These are actually just really fun to play with.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you fished a lot of those?
No.
That thing looks like a blowgun, dude. Like, look at that. Look at how long. That's how long? That's a 12-footer?
No, this is a 10-footer.
Holy man.
These come up to 20. So 10, 12, 16, and 20 are the lengths you can get on these.
What?
Yeah. And we sell these to the Wolf River guys who like to do the raft deal.
Yeah.
Some of them have enough backbone that they can, handle a floating Rapala. And that's it. Shoot them out, bring them down.
Now, these are a little more inexpensive, or what are these, like $30 or something?
$10.
What?
$9.99.
Well, that's perfect. I had a cousin reach out to me that was interested.
You want to shoot that?
I sent him the link to that. Hopefully, he took advantage of it. And this one actually comes with a bobber and some line in Aberdeen already.
Yep, that one's all ready to go. Got a little
just flip her out.
Just shoot her.
Oh, Andrew, right at that camera, right there. Look, I'm poking you right in the eye. Look at that. Okay. All right. Well, that's cool. All right. No, Andrew just asked, this is only used with a bobber. No, you can use it with, you could use it. You could take the bobber off, drop a split shot and a minnow down. You could use a plastic on this. You can use anything.
Any panfish technique you want.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I'll go to this camera here. Like, I don't know if you can see that. Look at how whippy that tip is. There's a lot of sensitivity in this. A lot of it. That's where all the sensitivity is.
Hey, save it for the dude factor.
Oh, that's
Matt.
right.
This is a family show.
I forget what show we're on. All right. So cool. And then reel wise, that's the next thing that drives the bait is your reel. So we carry a wide variety of reels from $30 all the way up to $130, right, for pan fishing?
Yep. Again, it's just like rod selection. What do you, how nice of equipment do you want? How often do you do it?
Yep.
Do
you prefer, okay, so a lot of guys bass fishing now, and walleye fishing even, the trend used to be something in that 2,000 to 2,500 range, right? Now a lot of guys have gone 3,000, bigger spool, more line capacity that way. Are you going a bigger setup here as well? Are you going to instead of a 1,500?
No, we're still seeing a lot of that 1,000 size, and I think it's as much just to balance out because you've got a lighter piece of equipment, so you're not, you're not trying to make the back end of that too heavy. You're not going to put a 3,000 series rod on.
Yeah.
You're going to go with 1,000. It holds plenty of line. And then again, dollar wise, depending on what you want to spend and overall weight of the reel to balance. A lot of preference there. Again, the same advantages of a high end reel versus a low end reel. Right?
Yeah.
You're going to get a smoother reel. You're going to get you're going to get a lighter reel. You're going to get a reel that's built better for longevity. So,
and one, don't forget your drag. I mean, your drag is also very important
for the size of crappies you catch.
Heck yeah, baby.
Mine don't pull.
Heck yeah, baby.
They're too
now
small.
you really make me want to go crappie fishing this weekend.
Pan fishing it's something I think every angler, that's what they start doing. So there is something about watching a bobber go down. There's something triggered in the minds of fishermen watching a float sink. It's kind of neat. So
this time too with the crappies, they're black. Like they're so cool looking this time of year.
Angry.
They
angry
are,
eating machines.
That's my favorite. My favorite fish, all 100% is a crappie. All right, let's get into so we've talked a lot about floats. Let's kind of go through some of the float selection you have here because that's a lot like your rod, like your line. You got to know how to properly weight a float or to use a float as well. Now, these are line throughs. These are your slip floats here. I'll try to get them out, Andy, so you can see them.
Yeah, that's your basic fill, $1.49 inexpensive bobber, slip bobber style. So grab yourself a pack of slip bobber stops and a split shot and a hook.
Now, one thing that I never realized is these lines are on there for a reason. Like that's like I was like, oh, okay, that's just obviously your indicator, so you can see that. But when the water should be, depending on where you exactly want it, it should be like halfway up that black line or above that black line, depending on how light the bite is. If you properly weight these, it's less resistance.
That's exactly what it is. So you want enough of the float so you can see it, but you want it weighted properly so that there is less resistance so the fish doesn't feel it and spit the bait before you can set the hook.
Yep. So for those who are getting kids into fishing, highly recommend a slip float, especially if you're fishing anything 3, 4, 5, 6 and deeper, because you don't have 3, 4, 5, 6 feet of line behind your head when you're casting. I do that all the time.
Yeah.
It just feels weird. So yeah, Andrew, so like your daughters, for example, if you wanted to go out fishing this weekend and you're just going to throw from shore, the slip float would be what I would recommend. I think Justin would recommend that too, because they can cast it a lot easier. And that by the fact that there's a lot less line, there's a lot less chances of it getting hooked mom or dad, hooking the next tree, hooking the shrub, hooking somebody else. So slip float is the perfect float for a kid.
The key on what you just said, if you want to fish your worm 4 feet down, you're in like 6 feet of water. Well, you have to have 4 feet of line sticking below your bobber on it, like a spring or a fixed float. And I'll give you one of these.
Yeah, here's the comparison. So, and again, like some of this may be mundane to some people, but this is the stuff that like common sense is it's okay to talk about it. So here, okay, slip float. We talked about this. Now, I'll just hold this one up here. This is the difference here. So you have no spring on this bobber at all. I'll put this one down. Now, this one has a spring. So what you do is you run the line through here, wrap it usually once or twice, and then you let that spring go. I don't know if you can see that, Andy. And then that spring pinches that line in there. And then to adjust it, you just pull the spring back down if you either want to take it off or your depth is off a little bit. You just pull the spring back down. A lot of people like these. Now, with this style bobber too, do you ever fish this flat?
You're reading my mind, Matt. See, you should just run this panfish episode. That is a great tip that a lot of people don't think about. Tell me about it.
Well, okay, so a lot of times we just talked about a bobber's up and down like this.
Yep, you got your line.
We got our line. We have it properly weighted.
You got your split shot, your hook, and you're fishing it. Boop, boop.
So when you cast, the bait will start to sink, and then it'll tip the bobber this way.
Yep.
And now there's a couple of different things you can do. So you can either lightly weight it so the bobber sits one way or another, right? Or you can even go lighter yet.
Which is almost unweighted.
Which is virtually unweighted. It's a slower fall, looks more natural to the fish, but then it's also a lot. It's like a spring bobber on a jigging pole for ice fishing. It takes a lot less resistance, and this little bit right here, if it's sitting flat on the water, if this is the water, This right here is a bite indicator.
Yeah, that's it. As soon as that tip starts moving, I mean, you're getting a nib, so get ready.
Get ready for it. And a lot of times bluegills, I always call it like the double suck, right? Like
The peckers.
yeah. They'll come up, they'll mouth it the first time. You can there's a lot of underwater footage on this. They'll mouth it, they'll spit it, and then if they liked it, they'll mouth it again, and then that's the time. But like, so a lot of times the lightest of indication you can get is when you should rear back and set, because
Yeah, you don't always want to wait for it to dip, right? I mean, if it's moving, it's in their mouth or close, you know what I mean? They don't have hands. They're not just, how's your worm? You
Right.
know, they're
yeah.
it's in their mouth.
Well,
So,
and that's one thing too. I think that is important to note or talk about is if you see your bobber doing this a lot of times, usually you're around perch or bluegills, right? Because they are nipplers. They don't eat it.
Little peckers. They either can't take the whole bait, and they're trying to just peck at that piece of worm or whatever and pull it.
Most of the time, a crappie bite is it's negative. So the other thing too is if your bobber is properly floated, and all of a sudden it tips down, and you're like, well, what the hell? Am I on a snag or something? No, you probably have a fish.
Yep.
Because a crappie, like a lot of times, will eat and then rise up. They call it a negative bite.
Mm-hmm.
You'll notice you get slack if you're straight lining it. So if your bobber is this way, if you have it properly weighted, and you're targeting crappies and it tips one way or another, that means you could potentially be on a snag or you could have a fish, right?
Yep.
If you're not in a heavily snagged area, that means you probably have a bite. I had where the hell was I going with this? I can't remember.
Well, you see it ice fishing too with that negative bite. You know what I
Yep.
mean? You're watching your spring bobber. If you have it set properly, it's just got a slight bend to it, and all of a sudden that bend lifts out.
Yep.
Well, that's very good indication that somebody's eating
there.
your bait and pushing it up. So.
Oh yeah, so that's where I was going with that is because crappies are more likely they're with the bigger mouth, like we talked about. Most of the time, a crappie bite is if your bobber's like this is not going to be this type of motion or this type of motion. What a crappie does is usually he eats it. The bobber or your indicator will rise up. That's where these more important to pay attention to how you have it weighted. If you're halfway up the yellow and all of a sudden you start to see green, that's another good indicator. Or they'll hit it and then they'll start to slowly swim with it.
Mm-hmm.
So you got to really pay attention to both of those. Crappies, bigger mouth, they suck it right
They
in.
usually commit too. They're not. I want to say they're not as picky because they'll spit it out too.
Yeah.
But they're eating the whole thing.
Yep.
They're not just grabbing the little
What are you
ass end
doing
of it.
after this? Let's go.
I know.
Look up the boat and go crappie fishing.
I got a hot tip too. I should. Will's probably out there smashing on him right now. But yeah, that's kind of some of the floats. We had a huge selection of floats. There is this one.
So keep talking. Andy has a question: is how you rig these? So do you have bobber stops? You have some.
I grabbed the sinker stops. I think for most of the bobber stops, I'd use just the nylon nail knotted basic thill snell.
come with them.
Yep, they come with them. We sell them separately, 10, 15, 25 packs. Basically just a piece of braided line on a little tube. You slide the tube up, you slide the knot off, you slide the tube out, you tighten up your knot, and the knot will slide up and down your line depending on how deep or shallow you want to set your bait.
Do you trim your extra line on those? Or
I do. I
it?
leave about a quarter.
Okay.
I leave enough so that if the knot starts to loosen up, if you're moving depths a lot, that I can kind of retighten it.
Yep. So first thing you do is you put your stopper on, right? So whether you're fishing like one of these stoppers or you're like what Justin was saying with the knotted variety, that goes on the line first. And then some will fish a bead, some may not fish a bead.
So I'm telling about the bead. That they do, the stops come with beads. Just to ensure that your knot doesn't slide through the bobber when a fish pulls.
Yep. So this is a straw.
Yep.
This is hollow all the way through.
Mm-hmm.
So that's so that you run your stopper. If you need a bead, if you don't need a bead, like these little rubber stoppers are nice because you wouldn't really necessarily need a bead with these.
Nope. That's got enough fat enough that it shouldn't slide.
It shouldn't.
Through most
so
floats.
then you do that. Then you run your line through here, right, top down. So you want this portion to be towards the rod tip. My rod tip's here. This portion is toward the rod tip. Run your line through. Then you can go ahead and you can tie on your hook And then once you get your hook on, depending on how much depth you are going to fish, right, is also where and how you want this to be properly weighted is how also you're going to put your split shots on. So you would, so let's say you are fishing in 4 foot of water. Do you usually go about a foot from your hook, depending?
Yeah,
with your
18 inches. Some people like to run on a swivel too to keep the twist out, depending on. So
that's a good tip.
Pretty common. Bobber stop bead, bobber, swivel, 18 inches of line, jig, plastic, hook, whatever you choose for your flavor, and then split shot. Again, that 12 to 8, right around the swivel somewhere.
Yeah. So are you doing a different line connection then? Like, so if you have, let's say your 6 pound, your main line, if you are running a swivel, then are you going lesser on your bait end?
You could. You don't have to. Typically, I don't. I don't do a ton of bobber fishing. I do a lot of pitching and shooting and casting, I guess would be the term for the panfish. But I do. We can get into the drop shotting for perch on the Great Lakes too. That's pretty technical. And not at the same time, just very, very effective technique that you're seeing a lot for perch fishermen. Mm-hmm. Perch being a panfish species that typically is a bottom-dwelling fish, where bluegills and crappies can suspend all over the water column at any given point of the year. So that's where the adjusting of the depth is a little more beneficial for that type.
So it's 9:40 already. So
we haven't even got past bobbers.
So we get, unfortunately, there's a lot more knowledge. So we got to, Justin's got to get to the sales floor. So we're going to speed this up a little bit. But there's a ton of different bobber options, right? Like you have.
So check this one out. I do want to highlight this one. This is one
I have never fished this, but I heard this is really cool.
So Rainbow Plastics Adjust a Bubble, it's called. It is a clear bobber. Here, I'll give you the package.
Okay, yeah. Maybe if I hold it, is that better? Is that worse? That's worse. Okay.
So the original design of this is to allow you to cast super light. You were talking about like the little ants, spiders, little topwater foams.
Yes.
That's why this bobber was designed. So it's clear not to spook the fish. If you grab the top and you pull on it, it opens up. You just twist the top plastic piece, the whole plastic.
Show me. I'm silly this morning. Oh, okay. So you're actually grabbing the whole entire bobber. I was just grabbing
bobs. So inside that bobber is a silicone tube.
Okay. Yep.
So if you leave it straight, you can fish that like a slip bobber. You can add water to weight the float.
Just by doing that.
Just open it up, dip it in the lake, add as much or as little water as you want to help you aid in casting distance.
Yep.
And also weight the bobber for buoyancy if you want to fish it. Clearly it's hard to see. Yeah, it is. It's not designed, as a visual indicator, but. And then if you run your line through and you twist that silicone top, just keep twisting it. Just twist it and twist it. You're going to see what's going to happen.
Oh,
Imagine your line in there now. So now that cinches down on your line. Now there's your distance or your depth.
Yeah. You might have to zoom in now, Andy. I don't know if I showed you when it was straight, but I'll do my best to hold it. You can see it's like it's braided now. Keep talking. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you want to cast, light top waters or lighter jigs, lighter twisters, and you want to get more distance, then you add that 2 feet, 30 inches above your presentation, or you want to use that to help keep a certain plastic. Say you're fishing a 8-foot cabbage line and you want to get that down 4 feet and you want to keep it at 4 feet and you want to just pull that bait real slow. You set that at 4 feet, you make your cast and you pull. Now your bait's going to ride at that 4 feet level and now you're just going off a feel.
Do they make this bigger sizes for like walleye fishermen?
I actually think that's the second to large. It also comes in red and white. Oh, so if you want something that's a little bit more easy to see.
I have heard a lot of these.
Super cool product. It's been around forever too.
I didn't even realize we carry these. That's awesome. That's great. I learned something now. That's one I might have to add to my arsenal.
And then that same company makes one with 2 line ties on both ends, just a float, literally just tie line on each end and drag your bait around.
Now, you didn't even bring a rocket bobber in here?
I don't have.
That's like a curse, bro. Like I can't.
Rocket bobber is a spring clip-on bobber, fixed position bobber. It's weighted just for casting distance.
Yeah.
Great product. I'm actually out right now. I have a delivery coming hopefully today.
Okay.
So we should have a couple hundred showing up today, but.
All right. So let's get into.
You want to scream through some plastic
Yeah,
brands
let's get
real
into
quick.
because holy smokes, like that's an angle of fishing for panfish that
So-
blew up.
Yep, big bite bait tube. I think these are $1.29 a pack. Tube jig. You slide the it's to me this is probably one of the most versatile crappies, bluegills, perch. Slide your jig head up inside the tube,
Yep.
and then it's good because you can tip it with a little piece of crawler if you need to, or a wax worm.
Yep. This is when I first started pan fishing seriously. These are the first baits that I used.
Yeah, they're still, I think, one of the best.
Yep.
You know, there's more technical stuff out there. There's little mini swim baits, which I brought a couple. Euro Tackle's got some really cool panfish stuff out. Kalen's, obviously, they're known for their panfish. I mean, they're known for a lot of things. Southern Pro Plastics, huge.
Yeah.
Crappie craws. man.
Bobby Garland, you mentioned him too.
Bobby Garland, the itty bitty swimmers. I mean,
Yes.
there's crappie craws, big fan.
Yeah, there's so many good looking plastics out there. And surprisingly, like you would think about it, you're like a lot of people are like, oh, I need tiny microscopic. I mean, is that a 1-inch plastic right there? If I do this, Andy, maybe you can see it better.
Yeah, generally 3/4 to 1 inch.
That's a 1-inch plastic right
Yep.
there. And those panfish
It's like
are
everything,
no
you know,
problem.
they're more aggressive in the summer.
Mhm.
Wintertime, I'm going micro, can't hardly see it, 1 pound line. You know, everybody's a little more negative. They're a little, the appetite's not as big.
yes.
Everybody's got cold fins. Here,
Dude,
check this one out.
What do you got here?
This is my personal. Where do you want it?
That's the game. There you go.
So yeah, this is in the boat with me all the time. I'm a little bit of an opportunistic fisherman.
Well, this is Justin's. This is a Justin
Yep,
deal.
just rides with me. I have an assortment of jig heads, a huge assortment of plastics. There's tubes, twisters. There's shad bodies. There's drop shot stuff in here for perch on the bay. I had a problem.
Well, yeah, but I mean, think about this, right? You are out there, you're targeting your whatever, your muskie, your bass, your walleye, and that bite sucks.
Yep.
There's usually a spot you can go on that body of water and you can still make it a great day and catch a bunch of panfish.
Yeah, or just grab a couple if you want, have some lunch.
Yes.
My wife and I musky fish the bay quite a bit, and there'll be plenty of times that, I'm pulling in a bucktail or piece of rubber and there's a 10-inch perch falling in. And I'm like, hold up.
Hold up. Catch and cook.
Set her down, honey. Grab my panfish rod and throw, I do like to drop shot for perch on the bay. If anybody's interested in that technique, stop in, talk to me, talk to Ty, talk to Nick.
Yep.
It's a basic, bass fishing's made that popular, but downsize the hook, downsize the presentation, and you got an amazing perch tool.
Scented, unscented, adding scent to it. The old salt products we carry. They even have a panfish candy, right? Is that the one I'm thinking
Yep,
of?
they got a panfish scent. They got a garlic scent. They just got a regular scent.
They got the anise.
Berkeley makes panfish scent.
That's
Anise, is a pretty popular panfish flavor. But anything in a fish oil base, or tip it with a little piece of red worm or a little piece of crawler, and you got your flavor there too. So
on the website there is a panfish category, right? So if everybody wants to see this stuff, they can just go right to therealshot.com. That's super simple. Lance and Will made that super simple. Go through there, click on panfish, and you can see everything. And you can even filter by product, by color, and your rod selection, the same thing. But I think one thing that I'd like to get to before we kind of wrap up today's show is the line. Okay. Same thing, right? Targeting bass, walleye, and you can spend a lot of money online. You can spend a little money online in this aspect. I still personally fish like this line right here. I fish a trilene. I usually fish it green. I probably should go more of like a high vis for indication, but I just go straight mono. Okay. And me in that cheap side of my life, I'm like, this is just panfish. But how important is like a braid to floral connection, straight floral? And why would you want to do that versus just going to cheap route and fishing mono?
So cheap route fishing mono, if you're a bobber fisherman, you're done. That's it. It's all you need. The slip bobber knots function or perform better on the monofilament than they do on a braid. Sometimes the coatings on the new braids make it kind of difficult to get that slip bobber knot real tight. And they have a tendency to slip. So mono, again, for your bobber fishing is all you need. It really is. And if you want to add that clarity or that abrasion resistance aspect to the front, then run a swivel, and then run a fluorocarbon leader underneath your float, and you're done.
And that's probably one thing that people don't think about a lot is like when they do get pressured and they start getting finicky, that more invisibility, I guess you could say, from the fluorocarbon is something that probably gets overlooked. I think a lot of times people are like, and maybe not everybody, I think there's sometimes people are like, it's just a dumb panfish, right? Like it's going to eat something. But if you are targeting a little bit better quality of that fish, you're probably going to want to upgrade the line for the most part.
Well, yeah, that, and I mean, the pressure in this area on the panfish population is huge. So, if you can, set yourself apart by being a little bit more finesse, or maybe your line's a little clearer, or your presentation's a little cleaner, it can make a difference. Definitely. It might only be 5 to 8 fish a day, but if that can be a big deal.
Right. Dude, I wish we had so much more time on this one, because there's and unfortunately we spent so much time on the rods and the bobbers, but I mean, that's your kind of your staple. I would really like to get into, maybe we two-part this, maybe because we have MPFL next week, maybe the week after that we come back in here, we carry on with the jigs, because the jigs have been a huge improvement. Oh, yeah. It's not lead as much as people think it is anymore. You're going tungsten, and there's a reason why you go tungsten. There's a reason why people fish tungsten for ice fishing. Mm-hmm. There's so many ice fishing baits that we didn't even bring in here, like spoons. Don't overlook spoons this time of year.
That's a great point. Like, ice fishing, typically you downsize. So we keep our ice fishing tackle out all year. 80% of that tackle, spoons with droppers, larger tungsten jigs, they're plastics, power bait stuff. All of that can be used for both spring and summer panfish.
Yeah, the Fiskas, the VMCs, the bull fly or stuff like that.
Oh, amazing.
Don't overlook that stuff. Don't put it away this time of year.
Yep.
Keep it out. Especially if you are targeting panfish, keep that stuff out. Because we didn't even get to the cubby. We didn't even. I see it. No, we didn't get
to the cubby. But that bull fly, that's magic, right?
That is, and that tungsten helps it drop better.
Yep. It's a talking buggy about little dangly. Put a little piece of meat on there, and there's not a bluegill on the planet that won't eat that.
Well, and we talk about your weighting. Weighting as far as your bobbers, right? That tungsten gives you a little more weight. It gives you a little different sound, a little different drop rate, especially when you are talking to these cane poles in that brush area. Yeah, it's a little more expensive if you lose one, but if they're down there, you don't want always that slow fall, that lead. Get down there right now, catch that fish, and just keep moving on. The beetle spin, the underspin. I mean, it's just so many applications. I think we should two-part this one. I think we should come back 2 Fridays from now, because we won't be on a show next Friday because of MPFL. But I think 2 Fridays from now, we come back in here, and I think we continue on this conversation, because we're still going to be in a really good bite window for panfish. And then we can talk about, too, is when they're not in that spawn mode. Maybe by that time, if the world sets up right, maybe we're looking for some post-spawn fish at this time, where now you have to go to something a little more aggressive. Maybe you got to find those fish just a little more suspended on that first weed line or something like that.
Yeah, for sure. We can even touch on fish tacos and sandwiches.
We should probably catch some fish in the interim.
Catch and cook breading.
Yes.
Coming soon. We do have that.
Can we do a live catch and cook, Andy, on the show? Can we I got a little portable little burner.
All right.
I got that. We could.
It will, if you're listening, save some of those crappies.
Save some for us. Yeah, because right here, too, we're going to wrap it up just with this. This little guy right here, something like this little Rapala.
Yeah,
this is dynamite.
Yeah, that's crappie crusher. And what I don't know if a lot of folks realize is a lot of this oversized. This is not oversized, but we do carry larger panfish, like amazing white bass products.
Oh yeah,
I grabbed this this pack of Strike King, this little Slabalicious. It's like a little super bright colored acid rain typey little paddle tail. You put that on an 1/8 ounce jig, 3/16. There's not a white bass on the planet that's not going to destroy that.
Look at this thing. Look at that thing. That's gorgeous. And on that note, I think we're going to wrap this up.
All right.
We're going to leave them wanting more. So 2 weeks from now. So watch for 2 weeks from now. Friday. I don't know the date on that. Is that June already?
No. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wait.
Yeah.
I'm not here.
June.
We might have to. I'm on muskycation that
You're on
week.
muskycation?
Muskycation
All right,
that week.
well-
Northern opener. So
Myself and who else you got from the staff that can come in here? Nick could probably come in here.
Nick can come in here. Ty's a huge pan fisherman. He loves
Get Ty
it.
in here. People want to see Ty Cornell.
I know. I love that guy.
Yeah. So, all right, everybody. Well, go out there, go to therealshot.com, pick up some of this amazing panfish tackle. Go out there, catch yourself a meal. Maybe you'll catch yourself a trophy. And then do this. Share it so Will can share it. So share it to the Real Shot socials, Instagram, Facebook. Will does a phenomenal job of re-sharing your pictures that you guys submit. And there's a lot of you that have been submitting stuff. Will make sure to tag you and reshare your post so everybody at the Real Shot can see it and all our fans can as well. So enjoy your Friday. We're wrapping this one up. Get out there, catch a bunch of fish, share it to our socials, and we will see you June 2nd for the next TRS Live.
Yes. Thank you much.
Thank you so
Have
much.
a great weekend.